Welcome to Dance for Inclusion. This is an Erasmus Plus project. We're going to talk about Lindy Hop and jazz music. Although the US was in the middle of segregation during the first half of the 20th century, Lindy Hop played a significant part in getting people from various ethnic backgrounds together. The dance is even considered to be a cultural phenomenon, breaking racial barriers. To understand the relationship between Lindy Hop and segregation, it is important to identify racial prejudices in early 20th century North America. The first signs of inequality could be perceived from the social restrictions African Americans had to face in the southern states of the United States. They were forbidden to use most public places, as well as attend city-sponsored events. They faced relatively high rents, racial discrimination when it came to finding a job, and being hired for mostly underpaid work. It was obvious that African Americans held a visible second-class citizenship in this reason. Attempting to give all citizens of the United States equal rights, the Constitution was amended in 1866 so that it now stated that every citizen of the United States of America must have equal civil and political rights. Despite the new law's intention to include African Americans in society by guaranteeing equal rights for Black people, however, in the southern states, the law only gave them freedom, and discrimination and inequality still remained. Black children were, for example, not allowed to attend the same schools as white children, making segregation something that began in early childhood. Moreover, there was certainly a lack of equality. Living standards for Black people were extremely low, and most of them faced poverty. It was obvious that African Americans held a visible citizenship, second-class citizenship in this region. These rough living conditions also applied to professional Lindy Hop dancers. This will be discussed later on. They're also discussed in Norma Miller's autobiography. Mama, being a Black woman, was unable to get a steady job. Blacks were last to be hired and first to be fired. Mama would go to the corners to be hired for daily domestic work, but competition for any income was stiff, and often she would take a day's work for 10 cents an hour. Harlem was the area above New York's Central Park, where Black neighborhoods were located. It was home to many Black intellectuals and artists. In the 1930s, Harlem became a place where new swing sounds were gaining popularity. These sounds, which had originated from the hot jazz of the 1920s, shared a steady, rolling thunder beat, making it impossible not to dance to the music. The new rhythm had an energetic and constant rhythmic 8-count pulse that gave a feeling of hopping to the music. Due to its fast pace, for some, Lindy Hop might have been associated with chaos. However, in reality, Lindy was much more sophisticated. Its upbeat moves were always in sync with the music, and the correlation between the steps and the rhythm relied only on the right timing and the perfect weight distribution on a certain foot. As far as chaos goes, Lindy Hop could only be called a marvelous chaos, in the sense of how unbelievably smoothly the dancers could move to the fast rhythm of the music. At the time, nothing could stop Harlem from swinging, not even the high rates of poverty caused by the depression of the early 1930s. Dancing to the rhythm of joyful swing music was an escape from the many problems Black people had to face every day in the 20th century. As many social dancers in the time, Lindy Hop grew up in the streets. People would gather and socialize while enjoying the music. By smiling, shouting, and allowing them to express their inner creativity through dance improvisations, they would spread positive vibrations to one another. It didn't take long before the dance became a new form of social interaction. With its rhythmical movements, Lindy Hop connected people and created communities, even through the rough times of segregation. However, it took a while for Lindy to finally start appearing in the ballrooms. Likewise, As is the case for every dance that originated in the streets, it is impossible to name the exact date that Lindy Hop was born. Thus, it is only certain that Harlem streets was the place where most of the first developments began. Most began. Back in the early 20th century, many ballrooms dominated New York. However, it was this one particular dance hall, the Savoy, that turned into a cultural phenomenon that brought black and white people together in the town of segregation. It was located in Harlem, and shortly after its grand opening in 1926, it became a significant cultural institution, attracting not only locals, but even tourists from outside the city. A huge place filled with rhythmic jazz music, the Savoy was to become the king of swing. In a period where many cultural institutions in New York were still racially segregated, the Savoy stood out because it was open to interracial dancing and entertaining. With live jazz bands playing, dancers shared their best moves, creating fascinating improvisations and making the Savoy the home of happy feet. As an original member of a troupe called Whitey's Lindy Hoppers, Norma Miller said, "The Savoy opened doors for all people being together. We were the first people in the world who were integrated. We didn't have segregation at the Savoy." In this ballroom, segregation stopped existing by the time people started dancing. Quickly, the Savoy became a place where Lindy Hop and swing music evolved in parallel. Famous jazz artists such as Duke Ellington, Count Basie, and Ella Fitzgerald supplied the tunes to which the most captivating Lindy Hop choreography was created. The Savoy was a cultural place where people of various racial backgrounds created the social dance together, realizing each idea in spontaneous and wild Lindy Hop improvisations. It was the Savoy Ballroom where a cultural phenomenon, the Lindy Hop dance, took place and broke the barrier of racial segregation.